No,
Okay.
perfect.
Sorry. Hi everyone. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for the time for listening to me. As Fred said, I am Frederica. I am from Nova SB and I'm affiliated with Nova Africa Knowledge Center. And what I'll present here is joint work with Alex Armand, Wayne Sandholz, and Pedro Vicente. So this is work that we've been developing since 2021. So the paper is mostly complete and it's currently being wrapped up for submission. So any feedback on uh, motivation or any last thoughts on motivation on or result interpretation that you have is actually pretty welcome before we submit the paper. So okay. So urbanization and structural change in the economy are important features of economic development. Internal migration on its own is an important current phenomenon. So it's estimated that that there are three internal migrants for each international migrant in the world currently. And while we've seen the world urbanize at an unprecedented rate in the last decades, this process, for some reason, has lagged behind in sub-Saharan Africa. And this is true despite the acknowledged positive wage gaps between urban and rural areas in that region. Also, despite the long-term human capital benefits of migrating to urban areas, and also despite the pressures of climate change and the exacerbation of climate disasters. And we argue that one important friction to urbanization is actually political incentives. So, internal migrants have the power to change the structure of national political constituencies. So, specifically in sub-Saharan Africa, it's likely that urbanization improves democracy by facilitating collective action and accountability. And maybe for that reason, there are important frictions to urbanization that are imposed by politics through policy in this region. And one clear example is land rights. And so what we argue it's that it's then important to align political interests with effective policies that actually promote urbanization and subsequently that actually promote development. And so in this paper, we tried to answer what are the political effects of promoting urbanization. And to do so, we implement a field experiment in which we randomize access to an integration program targeting recent rural migrants in the city of Climane, which is a capital city in Mozambique. And the program entailed the face-to-face coaching of migrants in several rounds of visits to their houses over the course of 1 year. And it included three modules, one of job matching, another one of information about mobile money, and another one of information about the city. And I will detail this shortly. Importantly, in the main variation of the program was implemented with the active participation of the local leaders at the block level, so what we call the block leaders. And in terms of measurement, we include behavioral measurements of political outcomes, as well as several rounds of surveys of local leaders, migrants, residents, and migrants' contacts at the origin. And one important detail is that most of the outcomes that I will present here today were collected around the 2023 local elections. So the spoiler slide. So in terms of what we find, we do see that the program consistently increases migration to the city by migrants' contacts at the origin. We do see that when the program is implemented by local leaders only, the program significantly increases migrants' employment outcomes. We see that the active participation of block leaders in the program increases awareness about it, and we find more social interaction between leaders and both migrants and residents, which is not necessarily a mechanical result. We observe higher political participation of migrants measured by the observed holding of political objects and by inked fingers, and I will explain what this means in a few slides. And we find a support for the local incumbent or the national opposition increase. We find that it increases. So we see that leaders become more mobilized in campaigning, namely with the migrants, suggesting that the program is actually used for political purposes. And we find an increase in migrants' contacts at the origin in being likely to vote for the opposition, so the national opposition, local incumbent. And for this, in sum, we infer that urbanization can actually be aligned with policy and politics. So in terms of the literature, I won't lose too much time, but we may mostly contribute to two main strands. So the first one would be the political economy of urbanization. So there's recent evidence that shows that actually decentralization can actually improve governance and service delivery. And also, oh, I'm sorry. Oops. And also, there is literature showing that highlighting the central role of local leaders in building state capacity and shaping political accountability. And we show that leaders not only increase program effectiveness, enhance program effectiveness, but also generate electoral returns. And this is important for understanding the political foundations of urbanization because we show that urban incumbents can actually expand their political base by facilitating integration in ways that are economically productive and politically viable rather than brokering votes among migrants through the traditional methods, which are clientelism and vote buying. We also contribute to the literature on the internal migration and urbanization by shifting attention from migrants' decisions at the individual level to the institutional conditions that actually shape migrant integration and mobility. So there's existing evidence on the drivers of internal migration, which is mostly focused on property rights and tenure security in what concerns developing contexts. And to the best of our knowledge, we provide the first study to examine city-level policy that is explicitly designed to integrate recent rural migrants. And we see that beyond the positive effects of economic integrations of such a policy, we also show that this is crucial for inducing additional internal migration responses through network spillovers. Finally, we also show that politics is closely related to rural to urban migration, as internal migration affects political behavior not only in destination cities, but also in migrants' origin locations, which contributes to the growing literature of the political equilibria across space. Is it moving? No. So, in terms of context, so Mozambique has close to 70% of the population still employed in agriculture with very low levels of productivity. So by 2023, it was estimated that only 40% of the Mozambican population was living in urban areas, which is far below the sub-Saharan Africa's average and the world's average. And importantly, Mozambique has been dominated by a strong ruling party at the central level since independence. And the name of this party is Frelimo. And Frelimo has mostly dominated the country by keeping a tight control over rural areas, namely through land allocation, which is mediated by appointed local leaders. And relevant political competition happens only in a few cities. And Kliman is one of these example cities in which the city has been held by the opposition since 2011. Kliman is the seventh largest city in Mozambique, within a population of approximately 500,000 people. And importantly, this has more than doubled since 2010, mostly due to rural to urban migration. And so just to give you a geographical sense of what I'm talking about, so here you can see the whole map of Mozambique, and this blue thing, this blue shade over here is the province of Zambezia, which is the province in which we work. And this red shade here is the city of Kliman, so the capital city of the province. And this migration that I'm talking about, this rural migration, is mostly from rural districts within the province to the capital city. And just to give you an idea of how Kliman fits into the African context, so 55% of Africa's urban population lives in cities of approximately 500,000 residents. So Kliman is a typical city in sub-Saharan Africa. And the urban population is projected to rise by 50% between 2018 and 2030. So Climane is an average city in sub-Saharan Africa. So in terms of the city structure, so the city is divided into administrative posts. So there are 5 administrative posts. And within these administrative posts, there are neighborhoods. And so there is a total of 54 neighborhoods in the city. And within each neighborhood, you have blocks. So there are approximately 540 blocks in the city. And why am I telling you this? Because each administrative post, each neighborhood, and each block has what we call a local leader, which is appointed by the mayor in power, so by the incumbent mayor. And so at the block level, these block leaders tend to be respected figures in the community, serving as a bridge between the municipal hierarchy and the citizens. And importantly, this is a pro bono job. So it's not necessarily a job, it's more of a title. So they are not paid for their services. So so I'm going too fast. I don't know if anybody has questions by now or okay. So focusing on the program, yes. Should I
Yes,
accept? Yeah, okay.
yes, Frederica. One question, like, given that they don't get a wage from the position, do
Mhm.
they have any, apart from the recognition of the community, do they have any like advantage from being a local leader? Like, what are the incentives for people to be a local leader?
So there is social recognition, obviously, and most of these leaders report aiming at a higher political position. So this is mostly a transition position, right? They start as the block leader, and from block leader they can be promoted to neighborhoods and to post and so on and so forth. So I guess being like block leader is the lowest in the hierarchy, but there is if they perform well, they can go up the ladder.
Okay, I see.
And of course,
Thanks.
there are some perks at the block level. So sometimes citizens recognize them and they receive some perks from benefit from citizens, I would say. Um, so focusing on the program. So as I've said, this was a program aiming to integrate recent rural migrants in the city, which was entitled Climane trabalha com todos. So translated means Climane works with all or with everybody. And it was targeting recent rural migrants, which has set residents in Climane up to 12 months prior to the beginning of the implementation, and that intended to stay in the city for at least a year. And this was to avoid high levels of attrition. And so the program was administered through individual coaching sessions, through 5 house visits to migrants, and these visits consisted of approximately circa 1 hour conversation face to face with the migrants. And so the first round of visits took place in August 2022, and the last one was in July 2023. So, as I've said, the program was divided into 3 modules. So, during the 1 hour conversation, we addressed these 3 modules with slight variations in each visit. So, the first and most important module of the program was job matching. So, program participants were allocated contacts, names, and phone numbers of potential job offers. And to collect this job offer information, we conducted 2 censuses of job offers by visiting every house and every establishment in the city. And then we also did 3 rounds of updates for these job opportunities by phone. And importantly, we managed overall throughout the whole project, we managed to collect 1,582 job offers, which can actually explain the low results on employment. So it's just there is not enough employment in the city. And so these were mostly the jobs were allocated to migrants based on their preferences, and these were mostly informal jobs with low levels of required education. So this was mostly construction, housekeeping, manufacturing jobs. So in the fourth visit, we were actually showing migrants a video of another migrant who'd successfully found a job with the help of the program. The idea was to boost participation and to keep we kind of tackled the aspiration aspect of the intervention to keep them engaged in the intervention. And so for the other models, as I've said, we contained the program contained the mobile money module. So this was a presentation on Mozambique's leading mobile money operator, and we were showing information on how to open an account, how to cash in, how to cash out, how to make transfers. Um, and by the third visit, we were also giving participants a small endowment that they were to cash in and to send to a rural relative at the origin, to a relative at the origin city. And finally, the program also contained the module on information about the city, which included administrative information, all the administrative information that is relevant for a recently arrived citizen, such as information about how to register as a citizen, how to obtain an ID card, how to register kids to school, which hospitals exist in the city. So all this administrative information that can be useful, and also we were including information on electoral registration and the voting process. And this was conducted through an interactive platform. So each new visit, we would ask about the information provided in the previous visit to see if to make sure that the contents were absorbed by the program participants. So in the main treatment variation of the program, everything that I was described was delivered through the mediation of the block leader. So at the beginning of each visit, we were showing a video of the block leader with a short message that's in which the leaders were supporting the program and incentivizing migrants to engage with the program. And at the end of each visit, the enumerators would also remind migrants about the leaders' names and the contact information in case of need, such that in case of need, migrants could contact the leaders. So we tried to have the block leaders participate in all the visits, but this was mostly impossible. But we had the systematic presence of the leaders in the fifth visit, so we managed to have 77% of the leaders in the leader treatment group to participate in the visits with us in the last visit of the program. And so, importantly, the first round of visits took place during the electoral registration period, and so we refilmed all the videos with the leaders, and so the leaders were instructed to were instructed to conduct a message on the relevance of being an electoral participant. So incentivizing people to register as an electoral participant. Yes, Mitali.
I just had a quick clarification question on the context, I guess. Did these rural migrants, what kind of electoral participation support were they given beforehand? Like in the rural areas, it seemed like there was one political party that dominated. Were people like involved in the political process and voting there? So was this like new information or was it framed differently? Like, how does it compare to any voting information they might have already gotten from rural areas?
I guess it should be the same information. We were emphasizing the relevance of being an electoral participant, which is somewhat new, I would say, because traditionally, and this is, well, I'm not documenting this on evidence, but what is known usually is that these votes are mostly captured by I would say vote buying, right? By delivering T-shirts and caps and whatever. Whereas we were here addressing the importance of being an electoral participant, which is somehow novel, I would say. And also, mostly what we were providing was administrative information, such as where you should register living in a specific block, where you should register if you want to participate in the electoral process, and how you do it, like where to go to register. So I guess in this sense, this
And
is
so
new.
oh, sorry. So then just a follow-up. So were people originally, like, do you know what the voter turnout rates or participation were? Could people choose not to vote like to vote at home, or I guess geographically it wouldn't matter where they voted?
If they're registered as citizens in the city, they should vote in the city.
Okay.
So it's yeah, yeah. Yes, Fred.
Another question, how did you hire or how were the regular enumerators hired? Who are those people? Are they somehow worse connected than the group leader or how were they hired?
So this is a Nova Africa team. So our knowledge center has a local team of enumerators that were hired locally. So these are regular citizens of Kliman, I would say, but they are hired specifically as enumerators. So I wouldn't say that they have any strong affiliation, political affiliation, or that they're particularly well known in the society. No, this is, yeah. Did this answer your question?
Yes, I was just thinking about when like maybe the most of the effect could also be coming from the fact that someone is super central in a society or has a lot of experience in a society, and that people who participate in the treatment rather trust someone who is or feel better accepted by someone who is seems to have more experience or to be more better connected.
So I don't have this in my set of slides, but we've done this before, which is to test to see whether the results were robust for controlling for enumerator fixed effects, and we see no changes. So it doesn't seem that the enumerators are driving the results. Okay, so moving on, in terms of the leader treatment, I think I've addressed what I had to say. So our baseline sample of recent migrants set the stage for sampling in our project. So we were finding a representative sample of the full population of households containing at least one recent migrant by city blocks. And to sample these, we were starting at a randomly chosen point, and following a deterministic algorithm, we were dictating the order in which households were asked whether they included or not any recent migrants. So enumerators were following this protocol to select the sample. And at the same time, we also did the same, but to select two residents, which we consider people that lived in Kliman for longer than 2 years. And then our study sample is then composed of 490 CD blocks and their corresponding block leaders, 2,632 migrants, which were conducted in two sampling periods, 995 residents, which, as I've said, are people who've stayed in the city for more than 2 years, and 2,519 migrants' closest contacts at the origin district, which were mostly family. To sample these migrants' closest contacts, we were asking migrants at baseline to provide us with the contact of the closest person still living at the origin, with their closest person still living at the origin. And this is how the sample looks like. So here we have the whole city and the blocks, and this is the distribution of migrants across blocks and of residents. And moving on to randomization, so we randomly allocated city blocks to three comparison groups. So we have the leader treatment, or what we call the full treatment, which included the participation of the block leader in the program delivery. We have what we call the basic treatment, which included the same integration package, but without the intervention of the leader. So it was solemnly delivered by the field administrators. And then we have the control group, which is a pure control. So we didn't do any visits. And randomization was stratified within strata of up to 3 blocks, which were created by sorting blocks within neighborhoods by the number of migrants in our baseline survey. And this is how the city looks like in terms of randomization. And just to give you a sense of the sample characteristics, so we see that leaders were mostly male, 67% of them, and they were on average 50 years old. They're mostly married. And importantly, 55% of them claim that they aim at a higher office position. So I guess this may answer your question on what's their incentive. And they do report assisting citizens with voting. Most of them are actually fond of migrants at baseline. Yes, and I think this is what's relevant. And in terms of migrants, we see that the sample of migrants is much younger, as expected. So these are mostly 24-year-old of age on average. Again, they are mostly migrants as well. And many of them are single. Actually, only 40% of them were married. And when we asked them so 50% claimed that the reason for moving was to look for a job. And when we asked them what's the main struggle that you're dealing with after moving to the city, 33% report finding a job and 20% claim that they're struggling with financial constraints. And I lost my back button. I'm sorry for this. Okay. Yes. So I guess this is what's important. Okay, so in terms of measurements, we collected survey data in up to 4 points in time. So we have what we call a baseline survey, which took place before the beginning of the intervention. Then we have what we call a midline survey, which was conducted close to the end of intervention, but before the last round, so in May 2023. And then we have what we call an endline survey, which took place right after the end of the intervention. And finally, we have a follow-up, which is a survey that we conducted 1 year after the end of the program. And these surveys were targeting block leaders, migrants, residents, and migrants origin contacts. And in all the surveys, we were measuring demographic and socioeconomic traits, as well as civic and political attitudes. And fortunately, attrition is balanced across comparison groups. So I will present you, so we conducted a series of behavioral measurements, and I will describe you here 5 of the behavioral measurements that we conducted. So the first one is what we call the political objects. So while we were serving migrants and residents, during the survey, enumerators were instructed to look around and identify any objects with a political content, and also to document the party to which these objects were affiliated with. So in these objects could be vests, stickers, posters, t-shirts, caps, so the traditional political objects that are distributed. And I will show results for this measurement. And the second one is what we call the inked finger. So it's in many sub-Saharan African countries, it's actually a practice that right after voting, people's fingers are marked with this purple ink as a sign of turnout. And this ink tends to stay in people's fingers for 2 to 3 days. And so, as a measure of turnout, after the local elections, the 2023 local elections, we hired a large team of field administrators that were instructed to canvass the whole city and check whether people's fingers were marked with this purple ink. So we did this in 2 days. That's why we needed such a big team. And so I will show results for this measurement. And then I will also show what we call political rally mobilization. So at the endline visit with leaders, we were distributing a blank list and we were instructing leaders to find the names of bicycle taxi drivers, which are the city's main transportation method, and also mostly rural migrants, actually. And we were instructing leaders to find bicycle taxi drivers that could be allocated to campaign for the incumbent mayor just before the 2023 local municipal elections. And so basically what we were asking was for the leader to gather the names and to register these names in this list. And we contacted the leader, letting them know that we would be returning to the blocks, and we actually asked the leader that at the time of our second visit to the block, that the cyclists contained in these lists would attend the visit. So we asked them to gather the people on their lists to meet us in person as well at the time of the second visit. And what I will show here is not only the number of people that the leaders were able to gather in these lists, but also we record attendance. And so I will also show attendance results. So then I will also show a measurement of stickers. So we designed two stickers, well, the same sticker, but two variations of the same sticker, which contained support for the intervention, which was praising the mayor for the integration of migrants through our intervention. And we distributed 40 of what we call block leader stickers, so the brown variation of these stickers. And also, field administrators were instructed to distribute 40 pink stickers across the blocks. So these pink stickers were what we call the field team stickers. And in both versions, we were encouraging people to hang the stickers on the house's front door. So in the leader version, the leaders were instructing. In the field team version, the field administrator were instructing people to hang them. And then what we did was we canvassed the whole blocks and we counted the number of stickers that we found hanging in people's doors. And this is what I will show. And finally, I will also show a measurement which consists of a fund allocation. So we were giving leaders 2,000 ntikais, which is approximately $30. And we were asking them to choose whether they would allocate this money to hire a block leader assistant at their discretion, or to use this money for hiring an external team by us to come and clean the block. And what we will show here is which options was selected by the leaders and yeah, details on this selection. And so that's it. This is the 5 measurements that I will show. So I know this is an awful figure, but this is just to reinforce that indeed we started the project in October 2021 and we wrapped up in December 2024 with the follow-up. Yeah, and this is a terrible figure that I need to work on. And so in terms of the estimation strategy, this is an RCT, so there's no point in losing much time with this, but what's important here is to say that we control for stratum fixed effects in all regressions. We include a vector of block characteristics and individual characteristics, and standard errors are clustered at the block level and robust for leader regressions. We employ an ANCOVA whenever the outcome is available at baseline, and I will mostly show a stack specification, which is combining the midline and endline results, so a stack specification. We employ multiple hypothesis testing following Romano-Wolf, and I will also show aggregation in indices following Kling et al. And so we registered the project in the AER registry, and we document that we expect that the leader treatment increases awareness about the program, interaction with the block leader, migration and employment, political campaign, and support. And importantly, we expect that the leader treatment improves on the basic treatment. This is what we were expecting. So, going to the results. In terms of program awareness, we do see that, focusing here, panel A shows results for leaders. We do see that consistently across, for the leader treatment blocks, leaders do report being aware of the program. They do know how to pinpoint correctly who the main targeted group was, so recent rural migrants. And they do claim to have been involved in the program. And this is not significant for leaders in the basic treatment, which is just reassuring that their program was actually delivered. So turning to migrants, we see that across both treatment groups, we do see that migrants do claim to have been aware of the program. They do know that they were the targeted group of the program, and they do claim to have been involved in the program. And I want to highlight here that these low coefficients are mostly due to the fact that we have very high control mean. So 70% of the people in the control, 73%, if I'm not mistaken, of the people in the control group do claim that they have heard about the program, that they know who the target was, and that they were involved. So what we interpret is that people assume that being part of a program, that being interviewed means that meant that they were part of the program. And well, we don't find much regarding residents and migrants. It seems that in leader treatment blocks, residents do seem to know that migrants are the targeted group of the intervention, though this is not strongly significant. And it seems that the origin contexts of migrants in the leader treatment blocks do seem to be slightly aware that the program was taking place. Oops, what happened? Okay, so turning to the economic integration outcomes. So when we look at migration responses, so column 1 focuses on whether the migrants were in the city at the end of the project. And we do see that there are high retention rates. So 96% of the sample was still in the city at the end of the project. So that's why we don't find, I would say that this is why we don't find any significant effects on retaining people in the city. But when we turn to their origin context, so across both survey waves, we asked whether people intended to migrate to the city. And we do find that where the mean is only 12%, we do find an increase of 3 percentage points for origin contexts in leader treatment blocks and for origin contexts in basic treatment blocks. So people do seem to intend to migrate more frequently. And when we at the follow-up survey, so 1 year after the completion of the program, when we asked where people were located, we do see that across both treatment groups, we see an increase of 4 percentage points on having migrated to the city from a control mean of 10%. So it seems that 25% of the origin contacts of migrants in treatment groups have migrated to the city following the end of our intervention. So it does seem that the program induced migration to the city. So turning to economic outcomes, and this is outcomes for the migrants. When we count the number of services that people were using for mobile money, we see that the means are 2.5 services, but that across both treatment groups, migrants do use 0.2 more services of mobile money services. So it seems that we somehow increased mobile money adoption. Turning to employment outcomes, it seems that the mean in the control group is that 23% of migrants have heard of job opportunities, and 50% of them, or 53%, report being employed at the end of the intervention and working approximately 5 hours on average per day. And where it seems that across both treatment groups, people have heard of job opportunities, which is in line with our intervention. So we were actually telling people about job opportunities. These opportunities only materialize into more employment when the program is administered by the leader. So it seems that migrants in a leader treatment groups do report being employed 5 percentage points more, and do report working 0.4 more hours per day. So it does seem that the leader is playing a role at mediating how jobs whether these jobs materialize, whether these job opportunities materialize into actual employment. And so, of course, we are interested in seeing whether we observe an increased in interactions between migrants and the leaders, right? And so when we asked the leaders whether they have any personal ties to migrants in a block. So we asked the leaders whether they know any migrants living in their blocks, and we do see that 67% of the leaders know about migrants living in their blocks in general. But we see that leaders in leader treatment blocks do report knowing 8 percentage points more migrants, are 8 percentage points more likely to claim that they know a migrant living in their block. But of course, this can be mechanical, this can be program mediated. So when we actually ask them to name migrants living in their blocks, we see that where only 16% of migrants are able to name migrants living in their blocks, leaders in leader treatment groups are 6 percentage points more likely to actually correctly identify migrants living in their blocks, which actually shows that emphasizes that there has been somewhat an increase in connections, in contact. So when we turn to migrants and residents, we ask them whether they know, whether they can correctly identify the leaders in their blocks. And we see that 54% of the control group and 59% of the control groups, the control residents, do correctly identify the leaders who are the leader in their blocks. But we do see that the leader treatment has significantly increased by 5 percentage points the likelihood of a migrant knowing correctly to identify who the leader in their block is. And this is only true for the leader treatment, and we don't find results for the residents. But when we asked migrants and residents whether they've been in contact with whether they've been in recent contact with their leaders in their blocks, we do see that migrants and residents in leader treatment blocks are 4 and 5 percentage points more likely to report having been in contact recently with the leaders in their block. So it seems that we're not only increasing contacts between migrants and leaders, but also between this program delivery is also extending to residents as well. So leaders are using this to increase contacts with the whole population. And finally, it seems that when we ask people whether they've sought assistance for a job, it seems that across both treatment groups, migrants do claim that they've used the leaders for looking for a job. And it seems that this effect is concentrated for residents in leader treatment blocks. So it seems that migrants kind of seem to know that there is a role for the leaders in materializing these job offers that we were distributing. Okay, so when we turn to political outcomes now, so the first two columns are illustrating results for the political rally mobilization, the behavioral measurement that I described previously. So in the first column, we see that 63% of the leaders in the control group were able to gather at least one name in the list. So we're able to gather at least one cyclist to participate in these political rallies. But we do see that leaders in leader treatment groups were 12 percentage points more likely to gather people for these political rallies. And when we register attendance, we see that on average, leaders in the control group were able to sample 1.5 people to participate in these political rallies. But we do see that leaders in leader treatment groups were actually able to gather 0.7 more people. And whilst this is also significant for the basic treatment, the result does not hold for the Romano after the multiple hypothesis testing. So it seems that indeed these leaders are somehow materializing this into actual they're getting people to do stuff. They're mobilizing, they're managing to mobilize people in these leader treatment blocks. So In the columns 3 and 4, I will show results. We're showing results for the stickers activity. So it seems that when we were looking for the stickers, we were able to find 43% of the brown stickers in control blocks and 65%, sorry, of stickers in control block of the field team stickers in the control blocks. But it seems that in leader treatment blocks, leaders were actually able to get 5 percentage point more people to actually hang their stickers in their front doors. So it seems that this treatment actually made leaders um, more somehow not incentivizing. I'm lacking the word, sorry, but they were able to more convince people into participating in the political atmosphere to mobilize
Sorry,
people politically.
you have 1 minute left. Is that enough?
Oh, yes, yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
perfect. Don't
Okay,
worry.
I was going too slowly. So I guess importantly, what we find here, which is what I want to highlight, is we have high levels of turnout. So 90% for leaders, 70% for migrants, and 82% for residents. But actually, we do see, even though it's small, an increase and significant increase of 3 percentage points in turnout for migrants in leader treatment blocks. So they are actually managing to mobilize people into being more electoral, but to participate more in the electoral process. And we don't see anything regarding self-reported voting for the national incumbent, so the local opposition. But when we ask the origin context of the migrants, we do see that in leader treatment blocks, so the origin context of these migrants do report less having voted for the national incumbent, so the local incumbent, the local opposition, national incumbent. So it seems that these results are actually going across and spreading to the origin, to the migrants living in rural areas still, to these relatives living in rural areas. So this is just a reassurance slide that indeed we do see that when we aggregate these outcomes, they hold, and there's significantly more statistic across leader treatment groups. I don't have time to show this, unfortunately, but it's just to highlight that it doesn't seem that these results are driven by an increase in clientelistic exchanges from leaders. It seems that it's indeed you give a task to leaders and actually they perform. They use it they know how to administer it better, I would say. So to conclude, just to wrap up, we conduct a policy integrating recent rural migrants in the city in a rural country where urbanization opposes the political interests of the ruling party. And we see that actually a city government policy can actually be explored as a politically compatible instrument to promote urbanization and induce structural change. And that's it. Sorry for my delay.
Thanks. So, Vitaly is going to discuss the paper for the last 10 minutes. So, Vitaly, the floor is yours. You want to share your slides?
Yes. Okay. Okay. Great presentation and great paper. I know it's been discussed quite a bit, and congratulations on almost wrapping it up for submission. I'm sure, yeah, wish you guys the best of luck. Super interesting paper. I'll go really quickly and not go through a summary, but I just wanted to say that I thought the research question was really novel, and I think the amount of work put into this paper is incredibly impressive, especially since there are like I don't really read many papers where there are outcome measurements on so many different fronts. So having like the SCAs, having the like migrant origin contact results and the residents and the block leaders is really, really cool and gives a more comprehensive picture, I think. So I just have four big picture comments and then a couple of random minor comments, I would say. And maybe some of these are addressed in your robustness. So if they're addressed, that's awesome. But based on the paper version I read, I didn't see them. So the first big point was about migration tenure, because the study involves migrants who have been in Kliman, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, for
Yeah.
less than 12 months. And so I think that the length of like the migrant tenure can be really relevant, especially with if this program is like I can imagine the job matching and labor market outcomes to matter perhaps a bit more for more recent migrants who have mainly been in the city for like about a month, as opposed to longer term migrants. But maybe those longer tenured migrants are interested in switching jobs because they got a job that they aren't as happy about, and might use the program to switch. And similarly with like political outcomes. So I think it'd be helpful to maybe do some heterogeneity by tenure of these migrants, maybe with a continuous measure of months since migration, almost like a event study type exploration could be cool, where you could just interact everything with the months that you've been, that months since migration. I think also maybe if there are any measures of job quality or job switching, could be interesting, especially because you find some effects on the intensive margin of labor, like with hours supplied. Maybe it's people who are switching jobs as opposed to just getting new jobs, or the other way around. Um, I think you could also maybe do like a smoothness test with baseline characteristics to see if there are any demographic determinants of how long you've been a migrant for, short-term versus like long-term migrants. Then the second big picture comment is with migrant networks. I think it'd be interesting to, your paper does mention this in the text really well, but I think just emphasizing how migrant networks also play a role, because the control group, like presumably migrants are finding jobs maybe through their network contacts, and they might be moving to areas where their network is strong. And so I think it might help to add or do a specification with some sort of like migration density control, where you can look at like some sort of measure where you can see the density of migrants from a particular origin area residing in a particular location. And maybe that can capture network strength. So you can see if the effects are higher or lower based on how strong the migrants network already is. And maybe that can also help you like assess spillovers a little bit, or contextualize spillovers a bit. Because I know there were some like stickers in control group areas and whatnot, but maybe it's from people who just have really strong networks. The third comment I have is on mechanisms. I think the treatment group incorporates a lot of different activities with info on jobs, M-Pesa usage, administrative city information, and I think there are a lot of potential mechanisms driving the results about like migrant origin, people who are from the migrant origin context, increasing intentions to migrate. I think there are a lot of these economic reasons where migrants now think a lot about increased perceived returns to migration. Maybe there's the information channel, maybe just the involvement of block leaders signals increased trust. And so I think just touching a bit on the incentives of block leaders, potentially interacting the leader treatment arm with leader tenure or other leader characteristics could be useful. And I think also trying to understand heterogeneity migration intention, since 50% of the migrants didn't migrate because of looking for a job, even though that was like a big component of the program. So maybe the results are slightly different based on migration intention as well. So I think teasing that out can help just describe the mechanisms a bit, since there's so many interesting results. And there are some cases where you might expect the leader treatment and basic treatment to have like the same effect, but it's higher for the leader treatment, and it's maybe unclear why. And so I think some additional analysis can help tease those out a little bit more. And then my last big picture comment is just because I think not all of the migrant households received a visit by block leaders. Maybe there's some sort of a bias. Like in the map, it looks like there were some blocks that maybe were like further away, or some households, migrant households that were further away. So maybe there's some selection by block leaders in terms of like who they visit. So it might be helpful to just test if compliance with block visits differed on any sort of observable characteristics. So those were just my big picture comments. I had a couple of other thoughts. This isn't on the slide, but I really liked in your presentation how you sort of ordered and framed the story to be a little bit more on the political economy side. I think in the paper, you ordered it by showing the results, like first with awareness, then with economic outcomes, then with political. But then when you presented, you spent a lot more time explaining the outcomes and measurements for political outcomes. So I think I liked that framing better. I think like if that's how the updated paper is, I think those are where some of your stronger results are. Um, and then I think there's just a couple of other small comments about maybe adding more context regarding like the resident outcomes and what the labor market situation is for residents. Maybe that impacts some of the sentiments regarding like welcoming behavior towards rural migrants or not. I think I was also curious to know like if the same person was approached each round. So if there was like a migrant who migrated with their spouse or with adult children, or is living in like a joint family home or friend home where there are multiple migrants, are the same job offers and preferences being shared, or is it different each round who is being interacted with? And to my question earlier, I think it would be interesting to see if the political results are similar to maybe political behavior. I don't know if you have this data on origin context. So I just wonder if you're saying that maybe there's vote buying in rural areas and people get hats and giveaways. Maybe they would also put stickers up if like leaders visited them in rural areas. So like what's unique about this program for migrants in the city? I think just contextualizing a little bit could help. And then my only other thoughts are maybe you could add some sort of a continuous measure of treatment intensity based on like visits by block leaders, or do some sort of cost benefit comparison to other programs that try to induce rural to urban migration, like migration subsidies and some of the papers done in Bangladesh, I know. But yeah, those are a lot of just random scattered thoughts. I didn't organize them too well. But overall, I thought it was a really, really interesting paper. And I think there's clearly been a lot of thought and effort and analysis put in. So these are just some of my ideas for where potential questions could come up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mitali. Just quickly share my screen. Okay, thank you for all for presenting and organizing. First of all, is there any more questions to Frederica, or does Frederica want to answer in this discussion, to raise anything what Mitali said?
Okay, so yes, actually, many of the comments that you have is stuff that we've addressed in the paper, but that I don't have time to mention here. So regarding migration tenure, for instance, it doesn't seem so. We do run the regression following the number of months that the number of months that the migrant has lived in the city, and we do not see any significant differences. So it does not seem that tenure is driving these results. Well, regarding whether they're switching jobs or this is something that we could know, and that actually I've not explored yet. But I can see, because I have information at baseline, and I can see whether it's the same job at like what they're working on it in the end. Yes, so for sure, thank you for the comment. Yeah, in terms of the migration network, yes, we've tried this. This is on the agenda. So yeah, we ended up not doing it. What we have in terms of migrant network is we have heterogeneous effects by density of migrants within the block, not by location, but migrants overall. And this is in the paper, and I should know better what the results are, but I don't have it at the top of my head, but it doesn't seem that it's a big driver of the changes as well. Yeah, in terms of the mechanisms driving the migrant origin context, yes, for sure, we have to understand this better. It's something we're still dealing with as well because it's not obvious the mechanism. So, but I agree that it's to improve. It's an improvement to the paper. Whether there is some selection of which blocks to visit by leaders, it doesn't seem to be the case. But of course, so we do have treatment intensity regressions with the number of visits. We don't have at the moment in this variation of the paper, we don't have any more the results on whether the leader participated in the visit or not. But we've done this. And it didn't change anything. So the results were still held and we didn't change anything. So it doesn't seem that there is some selection on whether maybe at the block level, these blocks are more isolated in general. Yes, I would say. But so within the block, if the leader would come, he would visit everybody in the block, not just not he wouldn't be able to select who not to visit. So I don't know if this answers your point, but yeah, but okay, but I have to think of a way to answer this better. Thanks for the comment on the biggest emphasis on the political aspects. For sure, this is something I will run by. And regarding whether the same person was always interviewed, yes, it was always the same person. So what we were doing is whenever we came across a household with a migrant, we would count the number of migrants that were eligible. So the number of migrants with over 18 that had arrived, that had been in the city for less than 12 months. And out of these eligible pool, we would randomly select one to participate in the intervention. And this was the person that was always interviewed. So this could be a man or a woman, regardless. But for sure, we've done a bunch of heterogeneity effects, and we have not done it by whether the person is married or not. So yes, this is something we can easily do. And actually, it's a nice comment. Thank you for that. And we do have continuous measurements of treatment, actually. We do include it in the most recent version of the paper. So yeah, that's it. I should know better how to detail these results, but they were new, and so I had to prepare the presentation, so I'm still absorbing everything that I have to deal with for the new version of the paper. So yeah, thank you for your comments. I hope I addressed the main point.
No, thank
Yeah.
you. Really impressive. I haven't gone through the appendix. I just read the version I got. So really awesome that you've already done so much additional work. And if you send me your email in the chat, I can send you the slides as well if it's helpful.
Yes, I would love that. Yes, I will, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else who wants to raise a question? Then Frederica, thank you so much for coming. Also, thank you, Mitali, for discussing. It was a really great presentation with a lot of different outcomes and amazing. Enjoyed it a lot. And see
Thank you very much.
you soon. So for the next seminar, which will be the next week, you again feedback form is on ours. You can sign up again online, and for the seminar, please fill out the feedback form, and the upcoming presentations are on the website. And thank you all.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Ciao, guys.